In a few days, it's gonna be 6 months of full-time travel for us. We're almost halfway done with our year-long adventure. Of course, we want to extend, but we think right now is a great time to answer some commonly asked questions that we get asked and just do a little bit of an update on kind of our immigration visa problem that we had with our 90-day visa in Peru. So if you guys watched the immigration video when we were in Lima, Peru, we headed to the immigration office because we were only granted 90 days coming to Peru when originally we thought that we had 6 months. So we wanted to go and see if we could extend it because when we crossed the border we were told we could. However, we found out that we could not extend it. So we would either have to cross the border, and we actually didn't mention this in the video, but an alternative to that is you can pay 5 soles per day per person, which equals out to be about $1.50. The reason that we need to extend our visa is because our 90 days will be up the day we get back from the Salcantay trek, but we're also doing the Inca Trail, which is 2 weeks after that. So we're going to be over our 90 days. We were originally going to head to Chile when we were in Arequipa and cross the border and come back. However, after doing some of the math, we found out that would actually cost more money to buy the bus ticket there, spend the night, and then come back than just paying the $150 a day.
There was also the option of going into Bolivia on our way here to Cusco. However, it costs $160 to cross into Bolivia if you do not have a visa as an American citizen. So we calculated that it would be better for us to just stay the few extra weeks. We'll be here and pay the 5 soles a day and leave at about the end of March into Chile.
So that's our update on that, and we're gonna have to pay probably around $80, which isn't that bad compared to having to pay
$160 to get into Bolivia
per person.
Or try to buy a bus ticket, travel to Chile, come back. It's 6 hours out of the way and then back, so it was just crazy. We got a few questions here from a little while ago that people asked us on Facebook, and we wanted to answer some of these for you so that way you can have some ideas of what it's like full-time traveling. First one, what happens if something major happens medically while you're out of the country? That's kind of relevant.
Yeah, it is relevant actually. Dylan got bit by a dog and we had to get a rabies vaccine because he had flu-like symptoms like 2 days after it happened.
I'm still going through it, to be honest. This happened 4 days ago. I was bit by the dog. Today's the 4th day, and I got the first shot yesterday. So, yeah.
It's a series of 5 vaccines. Luckily, they are free, but in a situation like our friends we met in Lima, they had to get stitches from cutting their foot open. There are a few different ways that you can go about it. We actually buy travel insurance because it gives us the peace of mind that if anything crazy or major were to happen, we would be covered and we'd be able to claim that. We also add on electronics theft, so if any of our camera gear or our laptops got stolen, we would be able to get covered for that.
And we haven't had to use any of that yet, luckily. However, we do that just for peace of mind. The medical system here in Peru, though, however, is pretty cheap, it seems like. I went to a clinic and I was able to get checked out for a whole 30 soles, and they actually even negotiated it a little bit and did 25 soles for me, so that's kind of cool.
That's like $650 US. I would suggest that if you're worried about it, do some research on the country beforehand and their medical system, because I think even if we didn't have medical insurance, we'd probably be okay since it is so cheap here. But just in case, peace of mind, we're used to the US crazy medical system and expensive medical system, so that's why we get travel insurance.
Yes, and hopping country to country, you can't expect the same thing.
Okay, I'm gonna read the next one. Do you find ways to make a little income in the different areas that you travel to?
I would say, and not in the different areas we travel to, but throughout traveling in general, we're trying to make income online. One of the ways we make income on the road is, there's a few ways. So Sam makes most of the income right now. She's getting a lot of the income from the blogging, and I'll let her talk about that because she knows more of the full breakdown. However, we do have support systems. There's Buy Us Coffee. You can buy us a few coffees if you want to support us in our travels to extend it. Also, Patreon if you want behind the scenes content. That way you can get an inside look of what it's like other than YouTube, some things that are some shorter videos or just longer extended cut videos of what we post.
We're making a little bit of money right now through affiliate income. That's where most of our money is coming from, and that's through my blog. So we'll recommend products that we use and love, and then if people make purchases off of those links, then we do make some commission. And as of now, we're not making a livable income. We can't solely rely on affiliate income right now to continue traveling. However, we make about $100 a month, and we're just working to continuously grow that.
What we do right now is kind of offsetting our expenses. We contact companies to try to work with them. We're looking at trying to do a few brand partnerships in the future, and we have some stuff in the works to start selling digital products and digital items. That way they're going to be informational as well as coaching oriented.
Right now I'm actually in the process of creating a travel budget planner for backpackers. Even if you don't want a backpack, it can still work for you. But I'm really excited to get that out. It's going to be around, maybe 40 pages, and it's going to have a lot of different resources in there. So if you're interested in that, definitely click the notifications bell because we will be talking about that more.
Boom. And other than that, I think that's mostly everything for the income right now. We're still trying to figure that out and not monetizing off YouTube yet, so we definitely want to continue traveling and start growing our income. Next one, what would you say is the most challenging part about being a full-time traveler?
It's kind of a hard one.
Yeah, you can go first.
For me, one of the hardest things about being a full-time traveler is just having to readjust to the new cities that we go to. It's constantly just adapting to my environment. I think that would be maybe one of the hardest things.
One of the challenges for me as a full-time traveler, I would say, is maintaining consistent habitual things that I would otherwise have in a stable environment, such as like a sleep schedule or work schedule. And getting things done at like certain times, it makes it difficult because I'm very ADHD, and it's based on my mood when I want to get things done. So, but also, I like when I find a place where I like to eat or restaurants around, and I like going back to them and like trying more of their food. So going to different cities sometimes, you have to find new places to eat, find all the things around, and yes, that's the exciting part about it, but sometimes decision fatigue really gets me.
That's actually a really good one. I think honestly having to choose where we eat every single meal, if breakfast isn't included in a hostel, like we get in arguments over it because you're constantly having to make decisions and we're trying to stay on a budget, and it's like, it seems like something that wouldn't be challenging, but after day after day after day, after months, it gets to be a lot.
Yeah. All right. Here.
Last but not least, how do you handle improvisions that are needed when they may so inconveniently and abruptly arise, being in a place that's new to you? Is there an app for that? I wish there was an app for that.
That would be very helpful, but I don't think there's ever really going to be an app for that, because it really is based on the way you handle it.
I think sometimes it's hard when I think something's going to go a certain way and then it doesn't go as planned, but I think ultimately that's like one of the challenges that comes with traveling, is you just kind of have to go with the flow and expect the unexpected pretty much. It makes you kind of resilient to the fact that nothing ever goes as planned, and usually what I found is the best days are the ones that are actually unplanned. I mean, I think the only times that it's challenging is when you have an expectation about how something should be. So I think letting go expectations has really helped me. I know that in the beginning it was something I struggled with, but I think as time has gone on, it's gotten easier.
That's a good answer. I feel like handling improvisations, for me, I try to find some sort of like excitement in it because there's not a specific plan, so there's more of an open book, like you can create it. However, sometimes when you have that plan and something gets in the way, for example, when we were on our way to Baños in Ecuador and a landslide went in front of our our bus, and then we had to turn around, and another landslide went in front of us again, so we were trapped. We were stuck overnight for 8 hours. I think for me, I was able to come together with the community and try to figure things out. So I started working with the people, talking with the people, and going and checking out kind of what was going on. Well, most people stayed in the bus. There was like a little group of us that went out. So I would say I'm actively trying to figure out solutions when times like that arise. We haven't had any situations where we aren't able to like make a bus, make a flight, any of that. So yeah, knock on some wood. I'd say I'm just actively trying to find a solution and take a breath and come back to myself and slow down, because if you let your emotions overrun you, it can make it way more difficult and kind of scary when you're in a place you're not familiar with.
When it happens, it can be stressful, but I think what that kind of has taught me is kind of just mindfulness and trying to be more grounded. I think honestly just traveling in general makes you really look at how you react to things. Feeling the feeling when it arises and being like, okay, it's really not the end of the world. And then usually afterwards, like the Baño situation, it becomes like a funny story afterwards and everybody's laughing and you're talking about it, and it's just like one of the stories you add to your book of life, you know? So.
Or when you get bit by a dog, you have to pull out the medical kit and then walk 7 miles uphill, 5,000 foot elevation. Traveling fast or slow, your environment's constantly changing. You realize you're going to always be stuck with yourself, and you have to figure out how to work on whatever it is that's stressing you out, or those emotions externally that you can't handle. Find that inner peace and be able to slow down.
I think that's it. If you have any other questions,
Yeah.
Please let us know in the comments below. We can do another Q&A if you guys like this kind of content. This is the first time we've done something like that, but it's kind of fun to just get behind the camera and talk about our experience. It's kind of a nice way to reflect, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. This was really fun. If you like this, please just let us know and hit the subscribe button and put a comment down there what your thoughts were. Action. Okay, action.
I think anxiety's going up.
I feel like, well, I didn't feel like I haven't slept more than a few hours in the last 48 hours, so this has been a fun day. I can't even complete full sentences. Anyways, welcome.